Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Greg Farrell. We are here with the second segment of Futsal Talk WA. In just a few minutes, we will have Adrian Martino on with me from Spain. Later on in the segment, we will have my father, Martin Farrell. Today's topics are going to vary, but the main theme is going to be developmental futsal. So we're going to look with Adri, we're going to be talking about the way that futsal has developed in Spain and the way that they work with junior and youth players, with a focus, of course, to moving players into professional futsal. Then we'll have a chat with Martin, my father. He started coaching in Queensland in the mid-90s, and we're just going to talk, I guess, about how futsal has developed, how he has seen the game change over 25 years, what his philosophies and perspectives are, and also then about what he sees or where he sees futsal moving as we move forwards. Again, a few people to thank. First of all, Annie Leyland, of course, with everything that I do electronically. As most people know, I'm not necessarily the best, so the technology and stuff is set up by her. And again, with everything going on with the coronavirus, teachers, nurses, doctors, anyone on the front lines, thank you very much, and please be safe. All right, we'll get started. With Adri, we'll talk about his experiences, what they do in Spain, and of course the fact that he has been over here in 2018 and 2019, and what he thinks, how he thinks Australian futsal can move forwards and should move forwards. Alright, so we'll have Adri join in a minute. Can we just get anyone who wants to ask questions, please put them in the comments, and we'll get to... If we can't get to them while I've got Adri or I've got Dad up on the screen, we'll try and answer them later on. We're just connecting with Adri now. Oh, there he is. Look at that handsome fella. Adri, how are you?
How are you, Greg? I'm good. Thank you. A pleasure to be here.
So one of the things that Adri has said is to please forgive his English. Now, when he was a little bit nervous about it, I said to him, his English is quite often better than a lot of Australians. So...
I don't think so. No, I wasn't quite nervous, but it's a challenge always, to speak English, and overall in public, it's something I have never done. So it's a good experience.
Well, your English is excellent. So we'll get right into it. So the first question for you, my friend, in different parts of Australia, we have different approaches to junior development, different structures. Now, I know you've seen what we do here in Western Australia, and we have ideas for what a player should know at 10 years of age and 12 and 14 and 16. Especially with those younger age groups, we focus on technique. So on their technical development, and then decision making and tactical stuff comes in later. Is it a similar approach in Spain? Is that how it's done?
Well, when you speak about Spain, you cannot consider it like only one method.
Yeah.
We have we are a big country, I think, not as big as yours in terms of extension, but I think it is even bigger. It is bigger in terms of population, so I think it's more than the double, and with a lot of futsal around it. So we have several different schools, and of course you can consider like attack of Spanish coaching, but it's not like that. No, we have a lot of different approaches to it. So about our idea, ours is similar. The idea is to show the sport starting from the child, starting from the closer they have. So first of all, they need to control their body, and after that we are going to put the ball into the system, so they have to manage it, they have to handle the ball, to be able to do things with it. That is what I think you call technique. That is why we think about technique or tactics. That's the main idea. But at the end, there is tactics always. They have to decide. They have to decide which gesture they do with what they are going to do with the ball, and after that we will put the defender. So that situation in between one attacker, one defender is what we call the play of one, the game of one. So all the concepts that are into that situation is like the start. Is what we have to teach at the beginning. And then after that we will opening it and getting into it, another defender, another attacker, and 2v2 situations, 3v3 situations. That's more or less the path we have designed. And it is not true. It is our idea, it is our method, and there are more.
It's one way, yeah.
It's only one way.
Yeah, well, and that's just a quick question about that. So, especially in very structured Australian situations, a lot of coaches use overloads very often, and things like rondos where you've got 6v2 and stuff like that. You mentioned 1v1, 2v2, 3v3. I have always I've seen a lot of sessions where there are rondos as warm-ups and that sort of thing. Do you use 1v1, 2v2 where the numbers are even most often, or
it depends. When I speak about 1v1 situation, I don't mean to have to use always that structure. The idea is to organize the exercises around it. So you can put jokers, you can put helps, you can put whatever you want around that. But it's to have almost one ball each player or each two players, in order to increase the number of touches, the number of situations. I know you know Spanish better than my English also, and so that's the idea. I don't like rondos, but it's only my opinion. I don't like too much that, and those are really used here. A lot of people use that, but I think that when you take out the direction of the game, when you don't have to attack anything or you have to defend something, it's I don't like that, because you are changing too much the idea, the meanings, the basic of the game. So
of the actual game itself.
Yeah, that's the idea. That's my point. That's my point. That's only my point, because it's those are really used here, and of course that has good advantages. So it's easy for the players to manage the ball, to control the ball on those overloads, on those situations. But and you have to do that. But I prefer to do it more into a structure of the game, into a normal structure. And of course, you need to facilitate it at the beginning to the players. You cannot situate a child playing 1v1 at the beginning, because it's going to be easier to defend than to attack. So it's not they are not going to be successful. So
successful.
So that's the point. You have to help him, and I don't know. Maybe you have to start without defenders, then to put a defender that cannot defend, at all, with all the resources he has, and maybe you can help them with jokers, with other players. That's the idea, to adapt this sport to what the child can do. That's what we have to do.
Okay, terrific. So, and that kind of it leads into my second question. So, you said there's not one way of doing things in Spain. There's multiple ways. In Australia, with outdoor football and then also with futsal, people have tried to come up with a curriculum. I guess. You understand the word curriculum. So we have, and you've seen the one that we have for West Coast Futsal, where we have principles for our coaches, and we have ideas for them to work on, and then also the focus for the different age groups. Is there something, or what are your key principles? What are your main foci for junior players? What do you think they need to be doing?
Junior players. Of course, it
depends
on the level, and
the level of the players.
What we do is to organize like you know, like organize a curriculum, but it doesn't depend on the age. It depends on what we are. You know, what you have to do is to create like a escalator, like a different levels, and first you have to know in which level you are, and you have to work from that. You know, so what you have to know is what is before than the others. You know, what things are before others.
Catering to the level of the team you're coaching. Yeah.
To play a 1-2, to play a wall, you need to know how to control and pass the ball. So of course, passing and controlling are before than other things. You know, and a good way to organize it is the way I told you. I mean, for 1-player situations to 2 players, 3 players. So all the concepts that are into a 2-player situation, like dualities, like passing, moving, these kind of things. Those are before the 3-player situations. That's the idea. So regarding at the level of the junior player, you have to start from that. So if he dominates, if he doesn't dominate control and pass, he has to start from there. That's the idea. Not usually what we do here is to focus on the 3-player situations in junior categories. It means that we really work it on 2 players, 1-player situation before, you know, in the younger categories, or younger leagues and groups. So now 3 players, and even starts with the systems, you know, with the 4-player situations, the systems, the truly systems, 3-1, 4-0. So, but to do that, you have to manage the others. So that is more or less the idea. It used to be the 3 players age, you know, and between under 14, under 16. Our categories are not the same in here than yours, I think. You know, we have some differences. And but for example, under 16, we try to focus. We try to start the systems, you know, in that age. And in between 16, 18, 19, there you can almost work the same as an adult team, knowing that they are not adults, they don't have to win, they have to keep improving. You know, that's the point at the end.
The focus, it's development, not winning. All right. So one of the academies that you run, which I visited at Valdemoro, it's all school children and it's school based. When you, and you've just touched on the sort of 16 to 18-year-olds, as kids move up in Spain, how do they progress from, I guess, somewhere like Valdemoro onto do clubs have all the way from under 8s or under 10s up to adults, and how do players move up competitions and leagues?
It depends on the club. Usually, the big clubs and the more of the clubs, I think, the most of the clubs, I think, we have all the categories, you know, and they can start playing futsal from, you know, since they are, I don't know, 5, 6 years old. Of course, at the beginning, you are not going to focus on futsal. You know, you will focus on, you know, skills and abilities and, you know, body control. And but you have to have that because it is like a jungle, you know. There are a lot of different stores, so you need to catch them since they are children. And we start the approach to futsal at 6, 7 years old. There are leagues since I don't know. There are leagues since 6 years old. I think I have to think because I know the names we have here for the categories, but I have to change that to the age, you know. And So here each category has 2 years, involves two years. So under 6, 7, 8, 9, that idea. And there are leagues to all categories, different kind of, depending on the city, those are organized differently. So of course in Madrid we have a lot of different categories, a lot of different possibilities to organize leagues because of the amount of people that are here. But on a small town, there are maybe only one league of underage. I don't know, underage. So that is more or less the situation. And they changed the category in terms of the age. They are organized by age. And since 13, 12 years old, we start to organize categories in terms of level. Usually at that age there are first division, second division, more or less, okay, with other names, but that point. And we try to, or the good thing, it is not always done, but for me the good idea is to try to walk to the specialization, try to specialize, to start the specialization since at the age of 13, 12, when they are teenagers, when they are properly teenagers, and you can know what they are going to be as an adult, the kind of player they can be, and also when they have created a good base, of physical abilities. Yeah, so for me, and I think it's that science, that is not my point. What we have to do is to develop a good base, a general good base that can be useful for all the sport he or they want to play, and then we have to get it closer to futsal and to transform it on futsal abilities.
Yeah, you use what they have developed physically for futsal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the idea. And that is, I am always telling it here in Spain, and not me, our group and our lot of coaches that think like that, who think like that. But it's difficult to convince people. They want to win. They want to play futsal since they are, 8 years old, children. At the 8 years old, and it doesn't make sense for me. We have to adapt the sport to them. We have to think about them, before think about the team or think about the club.
Yeah, and then the parents who want them to win.
Well, that's another fight.
Yeah. All right, one more. So we've had a couple of questions come in from people. The first one I will ask is from Tom Ellis.
Hi, Tom.
He asked, what's the biggest difference you've found from the futsal that you have seen in Perth compared to Spain? What are the big differences?
Well, I think I told you. It is not so different in terms of individual abilities. So you are good. You are good. You are good in terms of technical terms. In properly technical terms. The problem you have is the competitions. At the end, the competitions, the leagues will help you to develop, to fight, and to have to be better. So that is the next step. It's not easy, maybe, for you because of the distances you have with other cities, so that is a problem, and that is something, a handicap, you have to get over, and so that is the competition part is what you have to focus on, how to be, more competitive, how to, of course, to all that group abilities, all that tactical group tactical understandings, it's always the new step, always the next step, to develop it. And I think in terms of in technical terms, it's quite the same, and I do think, for example, speaking about your groups, about the groups I know, the girls are quite good, really, really good, and they can play here perfectly. And because you do something great, that is to to train together, girls and
boys and girls
boys. So that is perfect for them, because they have to fight against the boys that are stronger, of course, because of the that's something natural.
Physical nature, yeah.
So that is really good for you, and I do think that it's a problem of history, having more players of volume at the end, and that volume will develop better competitions, and that's the path. And that path is only walkable if you share a lot of information, if you spread futsal. No, that's the
actually that was my then last question, was talking about the spread of information, and we have spoken about this before. How I'm very much someone who believes that if we share ideas and we have discussions even with our opposition, we then have to become better ourselves, because our opposition are going to become better. And I know from having come over and been at your Vermar conference that's something similar. How do coaches approach it in Spain? Is it a friendly thing?
Yeah, it is. It could be better, of course, but it is really good, I think. And if you compare it to other sports, or with football, which it's a jungle, I think, as I know. And we like sharing, and I think that was our good advantage, our really difference, when 10 years, 20 years ago, the reason why the sport in Spain grew as it did, was the sharing, the idea of sharing information in between coaches, and of course in between players is the same, but coaches are like, it's like an exponential education. You will be better as a coach, so you will spread better information, you will create better players, and help players to be better. So that's more or less and I think that you need to create groups of coaches. You need to share a lot to do this kind of sharing groups to
collaboration.
Collaborations to improve and to be better. And always when for me, when I was there, and I learned a lot of things, and you helped me to be better. Of course, I could not be here without being there 2 years ago. That's how it is. And I took a lot of things from you, and I think you are taking things from me, and that is how it works with everyone. And always when you have to teach something, when you are in the position of a teacher, they are teachers always. They are teachers also. The students will get you better. Will improve you, and that's the only path, I think. And you have that problem I said before of distance, and that is a situation you have to deal with, but. Nowadays, we are doing a conversation, into the other part of the world. So it's doable.
It's getting smaller, yes.
Yeah.
Well, we have had another question from a parent of one of our players, Barry. He's asked the difference in the way funding works between Australia and Spain with futsal. So here, our players have to fundraise for themselves. They have to pay registrations and pay for tournaments and trips. Is futsal in Spain partially, or is it government funded? Is there government funding to help players? There are
public money in there, not so much, and I don't know how it's gonna work, how it's going to work now after it. But they have to pay. It's quite the same at the beginning. So futsal is like another activity in school, and in clubs. So you have to pay a monthly payment, like if you go to dance or wherever, or English, or a gym or something like that. That is how it starts. how it starts at the beginning. So when they are young, when the children are young, it's the way it works. After that, it is quite the same till you are really good, till you get a really good team at the junior age. So at that age, it starts to change, from activity to something a little bit more professional if you are on a good place, and there are not so many good places here because of the crisis, and there are not so many clubs that can afford that. Of course, you will not have to pay trips, for example. It's something that usually is paid by the team or by the club. But you have that, monthly payment, and as a gym or something like that. No, that is a good comparison, I think. And I know, for example, I suppose when you get, or I suppose no, I know that when you get these important clubs, the more you are, the less you have to pay. You have to pay, and that is how it works. But I think it's quite similar, to that. Well, maybe with better structure, better general structure, but it's the same.
Yeah. All right. Well, and that's what we touched on before with the idea of coaches working together is a part of what the reason why I wanted to do this. If we're hearing from an amazing coach from Spain. Last week I had Kevin, Tom, and Zoe, who are players and young coaches. Just after you today, we're going to have my dad, Martin. Hopefully we'll have some coaches from New South Wales, some others from Queensland, Victoria, to try to spread information and share ideas. And I guess that's the idea of this Futsal Talk WA came to me from the information and from seeing what I saw at your conference a couple of years ago. And just while I still got you for another minute, we have shared all the information for Audrey's Vermar coaching clinic online. It's the 7th one this year, and for the first time it is going to have translation to English. Would have been terrific 2 years ago when I was there.
Well, at that time you had that,
Well, yeah, I had some assistance, yes.
No, it's gonna be the same or like that. No, we will try to do that. I think I don't know what you think about that, but I do think that there are not too many English good information of futsal, because overall the most of the information that we have is in Spanish or in Portuguese, and so I think a good step that is being done and that we are trying to do is to approximate it to you and to translate it to English. Of course, with our English, I know it's not perfect, but I think it's going to be understandable, and it's a good step. And of course, also because of the situation we are having now, it will be online. It is not going to be, you will not have to travel, so it's really accessible, for the most of you. And it's a good challenge for me personally. It's a really big challenge to have that possibility to translate it and to share and to have English speakers, coaches, in our team.
Well, I know we've spoken about it. That there is quite a few people who from the coaching group that who are very interested. So. I'm sure you'll get quite a few quite a bit of English speaking interest. We have just had one more question for you. How does Spain attract players from outdoor football or keep them from outdoor football in futsal?
That's difficult. It's a continuous fight.
Fight.
Yeah, it's not easy because football has that attraction that is the first sport here. We have that that luck that we are lucky because futsal maybe it is the most played sport in here because it's easier to gather 10 people to play. It's easier to have a court on a school in a school than to have a pitch, you know. So lot of we have a lot of matches, a lot of players, a lot of children. Most of them they started playing futsal, and usually. They chose, you know, they choose, you know, they have that option to choose and to get the best players. And what we have to do is to be attractive. That's my idea, no? That is my, if you allow me, my advice, to be attractive to get them really involved in football, in futsal, to get a good. To do good trainings, to do good something that they don't want to leave. You know, that is and a lot of times we don't have to force them to be here. We just have to show them a really good sport, a sport that is for me funnier than football. You will touch the ball more. You will have more importance, you know, in the game than a football match, I think, and it is also more adapted. To children, to younger players, you know, because of because the small space. Because even though I think we have to adapt for the sport, you know, I don't think that to play 5v5 at 8 years old it's good. I think that's something we have to change. But okay, it's even better than play 7v7 or 11v11.
11v11, yeah.
And most of the times they change, they go to football, you know, they test that, you know, they try that, and after a while they come back because they realize it is not their sport. And
they enjoy futsal more.
Yeah, if they still stay there, well, that we didn't do anything wrong. That's good. We have created a sportsman or a sportwoman, and that has to be our first aim, I think. You know.
See. All right. Muchas gracias, amigo. I have to get my dad online. But thank you very much for coming on and chatting to us. I know there's going to be lots of questions, so if people do have questions, I'll forward them on to you. But also, again, we've put all the information up for the clinic. Anyone who is interested and wants to really get inside the brain of some of the best futsal people in the world, jump onto any of the Facebook pages. We've got the flyers and all of the information is there. Thank you very much, Adri. Please look after yourself.
Big hello, and you know, it's a pleasure always to be here, and you know that I am available always for you.
Thank you very much, my friend. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye. All right, that was Adrian Martino, ladies and gentlemen. We have gone a little bit over time with Adri, but with someone like him, you don't really want to cut them short. I will now. Annie's just going to get Martin Farrell up online. Just bear with us for a second. One of the things that we did just speak about with the collaboration and the sharing of ideas. I know there are people from lots of different places around the country, Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, Tasmania, who do agree and do think similarly. So hopefully moving forwards, we can get more of this sort of thing happening in person as well, where we share ideas. But we can talk about that another time. Martin Farrell has just come on. How are you, Dad?
Fine, thanks. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, and yep, you're good to sit back a little bit. That's fine.
That's fine. I didn't powder my forehead, sorry.
Oh, it looks pretty good.
Good on you.
You've just been watching the discussion with Adri.
Absolutely.
So when I spoke to you, I guess the main ideas I wanted to discuss with you, having started coaching in the 90s, was about how the game has changed, what it was like then, how it's evolved now. What are the big differences that you see on the court?
Yeah, it's interesting because back in the mid-90s, as you would remember, we used to play out of skate parks and any particular piece of concrete that was big enough for a futsal court. And it was in its infancy, really, here in Australia back at that time. The association here in Brisbane was a one-man band in an office, spare office from a legal firm, and that's how it started here in the south side of Brisbane. And they were in that office for two to 3 years before it grew enough to be able to go into their own facility. In saying that, of course, anything that starts off small grows, and as it has grown over the years, it has really flourished here in Brisbane, and I'm sure in most of the country. And the way that it's happened is through the schools, and through the schools, then through to clubs. And as Audrey mentioned about the toughness of getting kids from the outdoor game to the futsal, it's obviously that problem is universal. It's just what it is, and we try to manage it as much as we can.
Yeah, of course. What about technically and tactically on the court? What are you and we spoke about this. One of my mentors when I was a kid, Mauricio, was an amazing Brazilian coach. He now works for CBF in Brazil, and we saw him over in Brisbane a few years ago when he came over.
Yeah.
What was the difference, do you think, with the Brazilian influence in coaching and playing compared to now, where we're probably more influenced by European style futsal?
Yes, I've found that I always thought the Brazilian style was more free-spirited, and you virtually catch cry that I have with my girls is play what you see. And sometimes, the formations that we have, a player these days are making hundreds and hundreds of decisions per half a game. So it depends on the situation. It depends on what's going on at the very moment of time that the player on the ball is faced with. What I think the difference between the Brazilian and European is there isn't a great deal of difference that I feel, except that with the European style, the Spanish, Portuguese, even what I've seen of the English futsal game is that there's very much. I hate to use the word choreograph, but set plays and other tactical moves like that is a very big part of the game, which I'm not sure whether that's actually very good for the game or not. It's a game of opinion, obviously. So we have our own opinions for whatever we see at any moment in time.
Yeah.
So, but that's what I find the big difference is. I think that the free spirit of the Brazilians, even a lot of the South Americans, is something there's a key difference.
Yeah. Well, I remember, and I've said this to a few people, Mauricio talking about Brazilians and what the difference back then when we were 10 or 11. The difference with the Brazilian style futsal was the decision making. I guess what you're talking about, the free spirit, but compared to you use the word choreographed. I think the European futsal now is very much it's a professional game, and it's a very high level professional game. So there are more plans. There's more training going on
Yes,
day in day out. So
absolutely.
as
Yes, and I would agree that depending on what sort of competition you're in, depending on the time that you have with the players, depending on all that, how many sessions a week that you get, it greatly depends on what your plan as a coach goes into in regards to what you can do.
yeah. All right. We've had a couple of questions come in. I'll get to them in a second. But my last question for you, you've coached a Western Australian team at the national championships, and you've been around the West Coast groups a couple of times now. What do you think the difference is in coaching with the West Coast group compared to Queensland?
I remember the phone call I got requesting, begging me to
Hey, Dad,
take
what
the
are you
boys
up to?
I think it was about a week before Christmas, wasn't it?
Probably.
Obviously, time. To do nationals properly, you need to prepare. So time is of the essence. And from what I gleaned from discussions with you, apart from the emergency situations that we found ourselves in back then, is that here in Queensland we have 3 months. We have at least 3 months with a team. We're actually looking to try to lengthen that period of time, as we find that a few more players these days are deciding to play futsal and only futsal and not play the outdoor game.
Yeah.
So we've got to cater for that. So to be honest, I don't see too much difference between Western Australia and Queensland in regards to that. It greatly depends, obviously, of the availability of the players concerned, and everything that goes on with life, particularly with teenagers. So yeah, I don't see it being a big difference.
Yeah.
So it does it sort of when you get to finals and things of national championships, obviously some of your plans and everything is working because you're gaining success at the national level.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that. Like I said, we have had a couple of questions come in. Sorry, Tom, we don't have time for your question at the moment. We got a question from Barry. Thinking about when it all started in Australia, where did the idea or the perception come from with regard to starting futsal? I don't know if it was probably 10 years before we got involved with it that it had started, wasn't it?
Oh, I don't think it was quite that long. There was always indoor rebound games going on. I remember when I was a kid, back in the 70s, playing rebound and watching outdoor international players play a rebound game at Festival Hall in Brisbane all those decades ago. So an indoor game as such has been around for a while. The influence...
Formalisation.
Sorry?
Just the formalisation of the game itself.
Yeah, the formalisation of it is difficult to bed down to a date as such. But like I said, with Queensland futsal back in the mid-90s, Alistair Miller had a one-man office. So I would suggest, in those days, remembering my very first nationals in January of '96, the New South Wales, Sydney teams and the Victorian teams back in those days were very well organised, very well trained, used to flog us like you wouldn't believe.
I remember getting beaten 11-2 in a final.
Yeah, yeah. So Sydney had been organised in the game a long time before it moved to Queensland. So I would suggest at least 5 years earlier than Brisbane, at least, probably a little bit longer. So where that influence came from in Sydney, I'm not sure, but there was a heavy Brazilian taste to it all. So yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. All right. We're going to have to wrap things up. I got one more question from Tom Lynch. So he said, with everything that we've discussed in mind, how do you think, given the size of Western Australia, the fact that we don't really have access to regional players at this point, how do you think futsal can expand? And I will put a quick caveat on that, in that we do have plans to be incorporating regional Western Australia with school titles and that sort of thing moving forwards. But obviously, with your experiences in Queensland, with the southwest, central Queensland, even up to North Queensland, given Western Australia's size, how do you think that sort of thing, or do you think that is the next step that needs to happen? Or
Yes,
a step in the near future?
Yeah, no, I do. In actual fact, because it's worked here in Queensland quite well. The regional titles that we have here, and you obviously know a lot about that. And I would probably suggest that would be the next step in your development in Western Australia. And I think it would be a key step, simply because, yes, you do have the tyranny of distance against you, and you do, your opportunity to gain competition from the East and even from South Australia, the eastern states. I believe you would really, in order to develop the sport more, I think the next step would nearly have to be a regional sort of step, the next step up from your club.
Well,
schools, clubs, then regions.
And regions, yeah. Well, and what you're talking about is similar to the model that is used in the eastern states. Thank you for that, Tom. We probably have about a minute, and Merton Ekich has just sent in a question. Do you believe that Australia would benefit from more frequent competitions similar to the National League that we had a few years ago, and then have nationals as a purely state level competition?
Yes, I would. I would totally agree with that. Again, we suffer from the tyranny of distance. We suffer from the tyranny of funding.
Yeah, the cost involved.
And the cost involved. We are a widespread country with a very small population. So funding will always be an issue. As Adri just mentioned, in Spain, it's a universal issue. But they don't have to travel 3,000 kilometres.
No, well, it's from central Spain with Madrid, it's a 4 or 5 hour drive at most to anywhere in the country.
Exactly, so. and a 4 or 5 hour drive in Australia is a Sunday afternoon drive.
Yeah, it only gets you down the coast.
Exactly right.
All right, Dad. Thank you very much for your time. I know everybody over here greatly appreciates it, and they all would love to have you over here more often. Okay, just because I'm a really nice guy, Tom Ellis has not stopped asking. He would like you to give or share a funny or good moment that you remember from my football or futsal career.
Tom, you won't like this, but I was coaching Greg's school side. He went to St. Joseph's, Gregory Terrace, and we were playing it it was a finals day, and we were playing against Brisbane State High from memory, and one of Greg's teammates took a short kick in, just inside the opponent's half, and Greg just came through, and this happened right in front of me. I was 3 meters away from Greg when this happened, and this ball left Greg's foot, and you could hear just the timing was absolutely perfect. And I was in line with the ball, and she just curled ever so slightly into the top corner of the net, which enabled us to win that particular game. Now, Greg, of course, in his dubious manner, was very low key in his celebration of the goal. But of course, he was engulfed by all of his teammates. I think the bench jumped on as well, come to think of it. But yeah, that is one particular moment, Tom, that will always be in my memory.
All right. Well, thank you for being quite nice. Just because I know that that's not necessarily what Tom was looking for, I will just share one. On his first nationals trip, I was playing in the West Coast men's team, and on the first morning, all the juniors were still there, and they came to watch one of our games. And of course, I was coaching the state women's team at that point in time as well, so I wasn't playing that much. But I got on the court in this first game, and one of the players passed me the ball, and with all of the junior team up in the grandstand and my women's team, and I think a youth team as well, as the ball was coming to me, I looked up and was just having my touch, and the ball wasn't under my foot. It had just gone straight under my foot behind me. And of course, the 40 or so West Coast people up in the grandstand erupted. And Tom Ellis has not let me forget it ever since.
Well, you always did have one of those little lapses of concentration, I've got to say.
Oh, yeah, once a season, you know. All right, Dad, thank you very much for your time. Please take care of yourself.
No problem. Say hello to everyone for me.
We will talk to you soon. Well, you've just said hello to them.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
All right. Cheers, Dad.
See ya.
See ya. All right, everybody. Thank you again. We have gone a little bit longer than planned, but again, with someone like Audrey, it's best to get as much out of him as we can. And obviously, with my dad, there are people who know him very well and wanted to gain his insight. So thank you very much. Please stay safe, everybody. Have a terrific Easter. Do as much as you can with your family and enjoy the time, despite the limitations that we have. And we will be back next week. We'll be putting information out hopefully this week for the coming weeks and people that we are lining up to have on the show. All right. Thank you very much. Take care and goodbye.